are you, my friend?
I'm doing
I ain't
incredibly well.
worried by One Republic, huh?
It's good
That's
stuff,
our
man. We're
song.
here for it.
Mojo Monday. It is that time of year, or that time of the week, I should say. It
It's
is
that
that
time of
time
the
of year
year.
too, right?
It's the most wonderful time of the week. We
There
should
you
write a
go.
song. It's got a kind of a Christmas ring about it, though.
There you go. All
It's
right. Well,
a
anyway,
most wonderful time of the week. Look at that. You got me to sing that was dangerous, but I like the high ropes chorus. Let's go.
well, the good news is we recorded that so we can drop the track.
Right,
Um,
right. But it'll never be our theme song.
there you go. Anyway, today's topic. Big ideas come and go. And I
Yeah.
love this thought because it really is just kind of like, man, we all have these dreams and thoughts and but they come and go and we're going to kind of unpack that whole process. But before we do, our trivia, Rick, did you know?
Yeah. Did you know that plastics were not always capable of holding toxic chemicals, and that this seems a little esoteric. So, in defense of the did you know, it's not like, the butterfly wing in Africa, and, did you know that you'll feel it in 60 days. But it's an interesting factoid, and it ties into the story today. But there was the evolution of plastics, and that it wasn't as far or long ago as you think. And I met a gentleman who was instrumental in that evolution, and it's a fascinating story. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. So my gasoline can sitting on my garage floor is plastic, and that was not always a thing, right?
It was not. I mean, it would end up a melted ball, and I mean, chemicals all interact, and so there's the evolution of technology, and yeah, we'll leave that
All right.
there. It's a
So
it's a,
it
it's more
probably ties
fascinating
into
than you think.
our topic a little bit. Like big ideas come and go. And I will go out on a limerick and say everybody at some point in their life has had a thought, an idea pop in their head. And whether or not everybody took action on that is a different story. Yet you should recognize that one, you have brilliant thoughts, and two, big ideas are abound, right? Like they're all over the place, yet they will come and go. And you could tell stories of like the Blockbuster versus Netflix and Netflix or the red box DVDs. And like all these people had big ideas, but there's a moment in time if you don't take action, it's too late, right? Um, what do you think? Set us up.
So the idea behind today is that we're going to help spawn a new perspective around your next big idea. And we're also going to help reinforce the idea that maybe your big idea is a series of smaller ideas stacked end to end that add up to and become a big idea because the outcome is substantive, even though individual steps may not feel as big a deal. Yeah, and we've all had them. That's the point. How many ideas do we dismiss because of fear, uncertainty, a lack of confidence in, our resources? There are a million reasons, but there's the adage at KW is you can have reasons or results. And I want to share a project today that helps you. The idea is we're going to help you have results and not come up with another list of reasons why next year wasn't the year that you needed or wanted it to be.
Absolutely. And, whether you love him or hate him, I think a public figure most people are aware of is Elon Musk, right? Elon
Mm.
Musk has got to be the king of big ideas in a sense that whatever the guy thinks of, he takes action probably faster and bigger than anybody I know publicly, right? And not that you have to go invent a spaceship or even an electric car, but you could. Big ideas come in all shapes and sizes, and what's a big idea to you could be as simple as something that is within your reach next year, right? Like, and I think we're kind of framing this around, hey, what is your big idea for next year that you're not taking action on? And Rick, I think we should unpack this a little bit because I think there's a couple things that get in the way or make it foggy in a sense. Like fear, obviously, is probably the first thing that comes to most people's minds. Like I'd say fear's the number one reason people don't take action on big ideas, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I mean, fear is a massive force all its own. Opportunity is equally massive, but for some reason, fear seems to have this ability to squelch, to stop, to stomp. Fear is just mean. It's an ugly animal. And, I think we're all created with fear, as an element inside of us. So we don't do really detrimentally dumb things, like, look both ways before crossing the street, or you sense certain things that maybe are perilous, an animal nearby that could, a bear. I mean, you just have sensations and capacity to interpret energy. But at the same time, there's the innate physical, and then there's the processing speed of your brain and how you either embrace that fear, or and when I say embrace it in a negative way, like you own it and that becomes the mo, or your gas, fuel, or you release it and you intellectualize yourself in a different place and you mitigate that to reality based facts and figures, like, okay, I see why I felt that way, but here's the reality. And until you can train your brain to process that way, operating in fear usually means, small pickings. It usually means, minimal benefit or reward.
Yeah, for sure. And fear is also a motivator, right? Like
Mm.
people move away from pain sometimes.
Hmm.
So in a weird way, it keeps us from doing things, but at the same time, fear causes some people to take action, right?
Yeah, it does, especially if
Yeah,
there's social pressure. Like if you're, I mean, and again, we all have our love language and the way we interpret and, see ourselves in the mirror, your ego and your identity, if you will. But fear can be an incredible motivator. If it becomes a non-negotiable commitment, fear of failure is a real thing. And then sometimes, again, it goes back to how you process it, debilitator or enabler.
yeah,
And I'd like to think that if the mission's big enough, it becomes an enabler. And I
yeah.
also know this, sometimes we do things for other people we won't do for ourselves. And so as you process today's conversation, what are you not doing because you're personally fear based in some way, or it looks like a big daunting task that's could be overwhelming? But then enlighten yourself to the perspective that what happens if I'm able to do it and who benefits, because that might be the driver that allows you to lean in just long enough to prove yourself right.
I love that. And that just kind of takes us to the second little point here is motivation is key, right? And
King.
motivation's key or king or however you want to frame it in everything. And whether you have a big idea just popping in your head right now as we're sitting here talking about this, or something that you've had just on your back of your mind for years, maybe motivation is the missing link to get you to take action.
Yeah.
How do you go and explore or light the fire of motivation to go do it?
Well, to some degree, it comes back to your big why.
Right.
What's the reason or the source of what needs to happen for you to feel whole or fulfilled? And if you're not clear on that, then you're probably missing some of the fuel required to tackle a big endeavor and then to fight through the struggle and then seek the reward you deserve because you did it. You journeyed through the ups and downs, because the problem with success is, especially on the big stage, is that it's slow and then sudden. In other words,
Yeah.
it takes an extended period of time of struggle, and then one day you just wake up on the other side of it, and that's how life is. And but most people, I don't know that most people's fair. I would say many people fall short because the struggle becomes daunting and taxing, and maybe they don't have a tribe, maybe they don't have a significant plan, maybe it's accountability. There's a million reasons why you bail out on big ideas or opportunities, but I have programming that I'm excited to share in a few minutes that I think will help you circumnavigate that.
Yeah, and Rick, you threw out the word tribe. Um, Sometimes big ideas need a tribe to actually come alive. And I get it. Most people like to take all the glory or do something themselves. But the truth is, most great big things ever done in the world are done either in pairs or tribes. And if you
Mm.
think about like Microsoft, Bill Gates is kind of the face of Microsoft, but he didn't do it alone. It was him and Alan. Oh my gosh, help! Phone a friend.
I'll
Uh,
Google it. I know
yeah,
exactly who you're
no,
talking about. The big
maybe it was
dude,
Steve. Steve.
Steve Jobs, was
No, no,
Apple.
no. Oh, we're doing great. Well, anyway, Microsoft was not built alone. Google was two guys, right? Like they did it
It was
together.
Paul Allen. That's who we're
Paul
thinking of.
Allen. All right, there
Paul
you go.
Allen.
So,
Yeah, Bill Gates and Paul Allen.
Bill,
Hey, we're
thank
illustrating just how human
phone
this
a friend.
conversation is.
Yeah, we obviously scripted this. So, but Google had two guys that built it, right? And a lot of times you see the face of a company, but don't discredit the fact that there was a tribe around them that made this happen, right?
Yeah,
And Rick, I think I just kind of want to frame our conversation today is I believe in my heart everybody has a big idea inside them. So whether fear's getting in your way or you need to discover a deeper, more compelling motivation, or you need to bring somebody on the journey with you, I just want to encourage everybody to take action. And
yeah.
Rick, I'm so excited because you're taking action on a big idea, are you not?
I am taking action, and I've sort of hinted at it along the way.
Yeah. Tell me. Tell me
Yeah.
about it.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And by the way, your big idea might not be a wholesale shift in direction. It may not be go invent or create something that's never been created or invented. It might be taking something that's obvious and making it slightly better and marketing it in a different way. It could be taking your current book of business and doubling it in the coming 12 months because you established a new strategy around what you already know is your core genius, but it's not producing at the level it needs to. And it could be leads, listings, leverage. I mean, there's buckets of ideas, categorical opportunities to refine and define your approach. And the secret sauce isn't always throw everything out the window and wholesale start over. It could just be more intentionality, more focus, more purpose built, maybe a rebrand, maybe re-execute, maybe redefine the avatar for who your perfect, target audience is for your product or service. So just let that soak in. This we're not talking about wake up tomorrow and go build a 20-story, commercial building because you want to be in commercial, although it could be. So my big idea is this. So, and it was born out of a need. And what I would recommend you start with is what problem does this elevated idea or perspective or approach, what does it solve? That's step one. What am I solving that no one solved at the level that in the past, or maybe it's inside of your ecosystem? Maybe they're solving it at another place, but it's not locally sourced and marketed. So again, it could be repositioning. And I have a really good friend who's a spiritual mentor of mine who created and launched the Camp Grace idea. It's a summer camp for inner city kids. It's at risk exclusive. If you can afford to go to camp, most of you know me, know that my heart's all in on this summer camp. It's a Christian based camp and it's in Roberta, Georgia. I met Dave 20 plus years ago now, 22 years to be exact. And our company actually rallied and raised close to $500,000 to help build the first fort or the dormitory section of the camp. And he ended up buying some land, and now it's like a $25 million camp. The only challenge he has, he called me, he goes, Rick, I have a challenge. I need to extricate myself. I think he's probably approaching mid to late 70s, and Dave is the most driven faith-based person I know. And again, he's a spiritual mentor and been there for me, and so I take his call 10 out of 10 times. And he said, I need to, I want to raise another $1 million to create infrastructure that we can, when we're not doing camp. And just realize summer camp these days, summers are shortening more short and short every year, and there's only about 8 or so 10 weeks maybe of good camp cycle when kids are out of school and capable of the camp, which leaves 40 weeks of opportunity. And he's like, his primary job historically for 25 years has been to raise funds to help fund kids at camp. And he's created economies of scale, and it's very price, it's like $400 a kid. Like, it's amazing what he's been able to do with donations and efficiencies and a lot of volunteerism. And that's his job. And he's like, I want to work on the business and less in the business month after month after month. And so he came to me and said, I think if I put in 10 pickleball courts, put in a hotel of sort, another slightly upgraded version of Fort KW, and if I can put in convention center facilities, he goes, I think I can do a year round revenue. We can create revenue source to fund camp and double or triple the bed size and the number of young people we serve. And I'm like, man, that is a brilliant strategy. But here's the bottom line. It's how do you convert a me into a we? And
Yeah.
so I put it in my reticular activator that I really want to help him with this initiative because it makes sense. I love what he's doing, man. I know it lands. I was there last summer, and it's an amazing place to get kids out of the noise of the city and into a safe, loving, inspired environment. And I woke up with this idea, Brett. What if I established a group mastermind and coaching program? And what if it was fee based so that you put in money? And what if it was 100% charity driven? I don't make a penny. Make that next year's initiative. Like this is that goes back to that big idea.
Yeah, let me
And
drive that point home. So you said I woke up with this idea.
yeah,
So it's not like you were sitting around in some 2 hour think tank. You just it comes to us, right? These big ideas.
well, there's a Jack Canfield's one of my favorite authors. He wrote the Success Principles, and there's 66 principles, and each of them are like a 3-page chapter, and it's an easy read. If you haven't picked it up, do it. There's a chapter called the inverse paranoid theory, and it's that the world is conspiring to your advantage versus a Murphy's law perspective that the world's actually working against you, and there's resistance at every turn. And I just choose to believe the world is conspiring to my advantage. And I think my subconscious brain, as a riddle solver, wants greatness and wants impact and wants everything you want, but you've got to listen for it. And even more important, you've got to ask the right question. And so the question I posed was, how can I help Dave with this new leveled up initiative in a significant way while serving the universe at the same time? And this transformation for good became the name. The name even came to me in my sleep. And the transformation, the number 4, and then GOOD. And the word good, what I love about it is a double entendre, dual meaning. It means good because I want transformative energy inside of you. I want to help you have the best 12 months you've ever had, purposefully built. And at the same time, I want to do good. And not just me, we want to do good. I want this to be a movement. And so the fees monthly, and it's not expensive, Brett, by the way. I did the math. If 100 people buy into the idea of making a difference inside of young people in our world, in our immediate environment, at $149, we can raise $180,000. And that's a significant amount of money. And we did it. And then, just so you know, the idea was then born. Well, it's not all about me. I do want Camp Grace to be one of the charities, but what if we all collectively choose one or two additional ones and then we subdivide the pot and everyone feels contributory? Again, whenever you go from me to we, things get cooler, things get more exciting, things become less fear based and daunting because the collective can do anything.
Yep. So big
The collective.
idea.
So the big idea was this coaching program.
Well, hang
And
on,
then I'm like, how do I
let me
create
ask some
value? Because,
questions. Let me ask some questions.
all right, fire away.
What's the fear you have around it?
I think it's the same fear everyone has. I have this great idea. What if no one shows up?
Yeah.
What if 10 people call me and go, yeah, we're all in. And I'm like, well, that's 15, $1,800.
Yeah.
But here's how I overcome it. For me, I have to process out, fear. It's rejection. I think rejection is a massive force. And I thought,
Yeah.
well, those are the 10 people that are supposed to be there. It'll be more intimate and
Yeah.
I can make a difference because the personal time becomes more one to one or one to few and not one to many. And so here's another fear. If I have 100 or 200 people in the program, how do I create energy that feels tribal and intimate? And so again, my advice is write down everything that looks and feels or smells like failure and fear, and then figure out what's the inhibitor. That's the inhibitor, and what's the solution. And so my thought, well, if 100 show up, I just need mini tribes of 5 so I
Yeah.
have pods so that you still get intimate connection with people, but at the same time you get the benefit of 100 incredibly wise, motivated, unique perspectives. How do we
Yeah.
not top grade our world? And by the way, the idea behind the program isn't a specific one big thing. It's about the 12 spokes of the wheel of life. And how do you win in every category of life next year? And again, maybe it's a small step in all 12 categories, but collectively, it becomes an entirely different you.
Yep.
And selfishly, so here's another example of how I overcome fear. I'm like, would I do this for myself? And I'm like, I need this. I totally
Yeah.
look in the mirror and go, I'm knocking it out in 3 or 4 categories. I'm doing okay in 3 or 4 categories. In 3 or 4, I'm suffering. How do I create a holistic win for myself? And part of this is social accountability, camaraderie, goes back to the tribe. I know that 12 months from now, I'm going to be a better human being because I submitted and I owned and leaned into fear. I took a risk and I voiced all of my goals to a collective group, small and large, because
Love it.
there's power in group.
And the motivation, I think the motivation was clear from the beginning. You wanted to make a difference in the community, right? And you were
100%.
looking for a way to pair your skill set to go make that difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, yeah, I created an entire programming system. I hired a technologist and a software designer. And, each person's going to have their own landing page and a portal where there's real time active feedback relative to this week's goal. When next week shows up, it automatically sends you a reminder to upload your progress and your goal. And then it scores you. And then it automatically will send you feedback around areas of deficiency and opportunity. And so I didn't want this to just be, let's all get together for an hour and a half and discuss and top grade our ideas around a topic, although that's part of it. I think if you layer this collectively, it becomes a no-brainer. I mean, it's a small group pod every other week, once a month, live action, all hands on deck, big Zoom, an accountability system built into it. You get 4 coaching sessions one-on-one with me. So I'm gonna invest a significant amount of time in this, but I think it's going to be an amazing opportunity to impact lives and connect. And I'm going to grow in the process because I'm taking the risk. And so
Yeah.
you get 4 coaching sessions with me. Um, Again, reminders and the system. There's a lot of this is baked into automated systems, and it's taken an entire year to build it. So I'm excited to share it. Oh, I have one more thing. So I've coached hundreds, you've coached hundreds, maybe even thousands of people. When you ask people what their big why is, it's usually crickets. Like, few people really wake up and go, it's this. They might say it's taking care of my family, or maybe it's health. They may name some assets that they're protecting, but it may or may not lead to that emotional connection to a why as you take on bigger, brighter, harder to do projects. And so I met a guy by the name of Gary Sanchez. He's become a dear friend, and he created an assessment tool called the Y.OS. The OS stands for operating system. He's got an assessment to help you get clear on your top 5 attributes and your big why. And that's a free bonus for joining, and a real consultative benchmarker. It's a tool for us to be able to really connect the dots between goals, purpose, and the fuel that's required to drive those goals to success.
Love it.
It's a big
Rick,
deal.
it's a big idea, right?
It's a
And
big idea.
our topic of conversation today is really like not whether or not you have big ideas or not. You all do. The question is, what's keeping you from taking action on it?
That's
I
it.
just secretly or selfishly, I would love it if everybody listening to this call would text Rick or myself or both of us, what's your big idea? Take
Yeah.
action on it. I would love to know.
Yeah. How do you elevate the
Let's
things that
go.
really matter? I heard this week, man. We were at dinner, and the owner of the restaurant walked up and he said, the question was, how's it going? And how are your parents? Because they were here last summer on Marco Island. He said, not good. They're not coming down. They're debilitated. And he made a statement, Brett, that kind of shook me a little bit. He goes, you're only given one date in this earth, and that's the date you're born. Every day, every moment, every opportunity, every conversation matters. And I'm like, man, that is a strong reminder that this moment is special, and treat it with the reverence it deserves.
Boom. Big idea. Treat it with reverence just the same, right? And the question is, can you flesh it out? Have you put it on paper? Have you taken action on it? Have you invited others into your idea? I
Yeah.
think that's a big, powerful step too. Is if it's just an idea in your head and you don't tell anybody about it, or you don't bring it to a level where you're verbalizing it with other people. Even your idea, Rick, you're verbalizing it on this call, right? And the first time you verbalized it probably wasn't as fluid as the time you just did, right? And the time you verbalize it a year from now, probably it'll have a whole bigger, deeper meaning just because you continually flesh it out, you continually verbalize it, right?
Well, the most important part of a big idea is the first step,
Yeah.
because you can't have a second step without a first step. And to your point, I'm positive that the collective feedback, whether it's 10 or 10,000 that sign up for this programming, I know it's going to make a difference in your life. And I also know that the collective genius that's showing up is going to make you better, me better, and the collective better. And the next year's programming will probably be amended and improved and refined and defined. And that's the gift of having taken the first step and putting it out there and taking the risk.
Yeah. And I want to throw another layer at this before we get to your did you know? Sometimes big ideas aren't always sexy and cool.
That's a fact.
And that doesn't mean it's not a big idea. And I think some people think it has to be so front page news that if it doesn't feel that way, they won't go take action on it. But the
Hmm.
truth is, a big idea is what's a big idea to you? And then if it's a big idea to you, that is crazy, sexy, cool.
Yeah.
You go take action on it because I think you're going to hear in our Did You Know, there's nothing about it that is sexy, crazy, maybe crazy, but not cool. Yet it was a big idea. And Rick, tee us up, sir.
So yeah, and I'll start with this lesson that I'm constantly reminded that I am the average, and the way I think and the way I see things is directly correlated to the conversations I'm having in my life and world daily. And so I've found this to be true, and this may not be true of everyone, but if you're in an academic environment or you're in a place where socioeconomic status is different or where people just who've achieved big things are hanging out, the idea of big things becomes more palpable, more achievable, more like it's all about looking in the mirror and then looking at role models and recognizing your inner greatness and capacity. And by the way, this story is not me going, I could have done what this fella did because I couldn't have, but I met him in a cool place with a cool friends, common friends usually drive these relationships. And his name happens to be Monty. And he's retired and has done incredibly well, sold his company and pretty much easy street at this point, or that's the perception. And here's what he did. I said, "So, Monty, what's your claim to fame?" And he said, "Well, I actually created the capacity to treat and coat plastics in a way that it can hold gasoline long term without having interactive effects of, interactive chemical bonding and effects." And I'm like, wow, that's esoteric. I've never really thought much about. I take my gas can to the, when I need gas for my lawnmower and fill it up. I stick it in the garage sometimes for years. And when I
Yeah.
need it, it's there, And he's like, wasn't always that way. And I said, well, you must be some kind of biochemist. Like, surely chemical processes, a PhD in something, because that's brilliant to convert and create safe, plastics. And he said, actually, I'm a mathematician. And he went on to share how they had a parts division and would make these things, and it was all industrial stuff. And he said one day his partner came to him, and Brett, this illustrates your point exactly. You have the idea, you have the idea guy and the integrator. And
Yep.
his partner came to him and says, "Hey, you're a smart guy, Monty. Figure out how to coat plastic so that we can patent, some chemical bond so that you can put anything toxic inside plastic containers." And by the way, I thought this was going to be in like the 50s or 60s. This happened in the early 80s, like late
Yeah.
70s. And so this is all this is taking something that there was some plastic use, but it was restrictive, and they made it better, and then they own the rights to it. So he went home with this formula called the Gibbs free energy formula, because I being curious. Step two in learning and getting to know people is to ask questions, go 2, 3 deep. I said, well, Monty, now you've got to share with me how you put a math formula to solve a chemical problem. And he said, well, there's this formula called the Gibbs free energy formula. I looked it up, it actually exists. I read what it was involved, and I'm not even going to try to tell you because it's way over my pay grade. But he said, I went home, I bought a 3 ring binder, shoved it, all the paper I could find into it, and I started with the very first page with the formula, and I reverse engineered exactly how to do it. He goes, I started on a Friday, Sunday night, I circled the finished product. I called my partner and said I'd done it. And I'm like, wow, that's serious focus. And he's like, yeah, I mean, there were a lot of companies competing, by the way, with this isn't a new idea. Everybody,
Yeah.
DuPont, all the big name chemical companies wanted this for the public and consumer because of the value. He goes, they went on to patent it, and then apparently he said there were like 30 or 35 manufacturing facilities around the world that anybody that has plastics that are impervious to chemicals and toxic, stuff at the level that they were doing it had to go through their system and their process. And it, again, I don't know about you, but that's not very sexy.
No, it's not very
As
cool either. It is
no,
now, but
but it is now because again, it
but it
goes
was a
back
big
to what
idea that
problem are you
somebody took
solving?
action.
What problem are you solving, Brett? That's the ultimate question inside of your imagination and inside of your capacity.
Love it. And what better day than to solve a problem, sir?
We're here to help you solve problems and keep an eye out for transformation for good. It's for you. I'm doing this
Yeah.
for you. And I can't wait to hang out and elevate everything about your goals and plans for next year.
Yeah. And you missed my cue, but what better day?
It's Mojo Monday. I didn't miss